Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sleep Detective podcast, where good health, longevity, and sleep are inevitable. Today, I want to talk about the weight loss, thyroid, cortisol, and sleep connection, and really how cortisol can sabotage trying to lose weight. It can sabotage your thyroid, which also determines whether it's easy or not to lose weight, and of course, your sleep. And so these are all very interconnected. So I'm wondering if you've ever noticed that you're hungrier and you crave unhealthy foods when you don't get enough sleep. I have definitely seen this. So, years ago, I used to manage the supplement department of a health food store. And every quarter, we had to do inventory. And so I had to be at work at 4 a.m. because you want to get it done before the store opens for the day. And I would always reward myself with a cinnamon roll. Like that is what I was craving once I got hungry at, say, around 6 a.m. And I never craved this any other time, but it always made me feel awful, but I always wanted to do it. And it's because I was having to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, which I wasn't normally doing, and I didn't get enough sleep. And so, if you are dreaming of summer like I am, for some of you, it might already be close to summer, but I live in Wyoming where summer is still a long ways away. You may realize that you'll be wearing a bathing suit soon. And I know for me, I'm going on a beach trip to North Carolina toward the end of June. And so, if you've gained weight over the winter, then you want to listen to this episode, especially if you aren't sleeping, because the sleep that you aren't getting and elevated cortisol can lead to belly fat and excess weight. So it's all very connected. So, first, I want to talk about sleep deprivation and hunger. So, we know that we crave unhealthy foods when we haven't got enough sleep. And so I want to tell you what's actually happening in your body with your hormones. So that way, hopefully, you can resist those junk food cravings. And if you're not sleeping well most nights, then knowing that addressing your sleep is also going to help you eat less and lose weight a lot easier. So there are two hormones that control hunger, leptin and ghrelin. So ghrelin tells your body that you're hungry, and leptin signals when you're full. So when you sleep, say only 4 or 5 hours a night, studies show that you actually have increased levels of ghrelin, even if you do the same amount of activity and eat the same foods. So you actually feel hungrier than you would if you slept a full 8 hours. There was actually one study that showed that people ate 300 calories more a day when they slept 4.5 hours a night compared to others who got 8 hours of sleep. So there has been research done on this showing that this is true. Now, let's talk about sleep deprivation and cortisol because when you don't get enough sleep, your body releases cortisol. And when cortisol is elevated, it tells your liver to release its stored glucose. It literally gives your body energy, but it also limits insulin. So then your blood sugar levels increase, which can lead to blood sugar dysregulation and insulin resistance. And so, the short story, too, is that cortisol tells your body to store fat. So, a sure sign of elevated cortisol is belly fat that won't go away no matter how many crunches and exercises you try to do. Now, if you've listened to my podcast before, then you know that I talk a lot about how cortisol also sabotages sleep. So many of my clients have high cortisol at bedtime, and that makes sense if they're having trouble falling asleep, or high cortisol in the middle of the night. So this can happen if you're waking up in the middle of the night and having a hard time going back to sleep. So finding out why your body is releasing cortisol at night is really the key to overcoming any kind of sleep issues. And so the most common reasons why people have high cortisol at night have to do with a pathogen in the gut. So things like parasites, bad bacteria, candida, which is a type of yeast, all of these creatures are nocturnal. And so it's the middle of the night that they are releasing all these toxins, which causes a lot of inflammation. Cortisol is also an anti inflammatory hormone. So then it comes to the rescue to lower that inflammation. But again, that's also going to give you energy, make you wake up, and release glucose into your cells in the middle of the night when you don't need that energy. Now, low blood sugar is another common reason for high cortisol in the middle of the night. Whenever your blood sugar drops too low, your body releases cortisol because, again, that's going to raise your blood sugar. So it's always, your body's always trying to stay in balance there. But of course, when that's happening at night, that's going to wake you up. If your liver is congested or if there are more toxins than it can handle in the middle of the night, that also causes inflammation and can wake you up. And then food sensitivity. So if you're eating foods that you're sensitive to, that causes this low grade inflammation day and night, which can also wake you up at night. So I run different lab tests to find which of these things are keeping people awake at night. It's a little bit different for everyone. Sometimes it's a combination of all of these, sometimes it's just a couple of these or one of these. It is different for everyone. Now, let's talk about cortisol and your thyroid because I feel like this is not as commonly known. Too much cortisol actually affects your thyroid as well. So, common symptoms of hypothyroidism are going to be fatigue, inability to lose weight, low body temperature, cold hands and feet, dry skin, and thin eyebrows. Now, I want to point out that hypothyroidism doesn't always mean that there's something wrong with the thyroid. Now, a lot of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune, which means that the body's producing antibodies against the thyroid. But more for kind of subclinical hypothyroidism, or if you have some of these symptoms that I just mentioned, but then your thyroid tests come back normal, when I look at those using functional and optimal ranges, a lot of times TSH is still normal, but T4 and T3 are lower than what's optimal. So you're not going to get diagnosed with hypothyroidism, but it still means that your thyroid and those hormones aren't optimal, and so this can be leading to weight gain and inability to lose weight. And so, if there's nothing actually wrong with your thyroid, if there's not autoimmune thyroid, then the same symptoms and the low T4 and T3 can be caused by things like mineral deficiencies, like selenium and iodine. And also, the the TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. So that tells the thyroid to produce T4 and T3, but it mostly produces T4. And then T4 is converted to T3, the usable form, by the liver and the gut primarily. And so that conversion might not be happening if the gut is unhealthy and if the liver is congested. Now, what can happen with cortisol is that elevated cortisol can actually make the thyroid more inactive. So instead of converting that T4 to T3, it actually elevates reverse T3, which then can't be used by the body. It's kind of like the storage form. And so you have a sluggish metabolism and weight gain, and you can't lose it even if you exercise more or restrict calories. So, since inflammation can be the main cause of elevated cortisol, finding the source of inflammation is the key. Again, so what I already talked about with looking at liver function, looking at pathogens in the gut, looking at blood sugar, looking for food sensitivities. So, I use functional lab tests to find out which one of those things are going on so that then we know what to correct. Now, of course, mental and emotional stress can cause your body to release cortisol too. So that's why it's also really important to manage stress, to deal with anxiety about sleep. And this is something that we help our clients with as well too. I think that sleep issues are very much a mind and body problem. And CBTI and things like that can address the mental part of not sleeping, but we also need to figure out what's going on in the body that's affecting sleep. And so I talk a lot about the functional lab testing I do, But it's also really important to make sure that your mind isn't sabotaging your sleep and that too much stress in your life isn't also causing this elevated cortisol, which damages the body over time and is going to affect your sleep as well. So, I just want you to know that if you aren't sleeping well and you've had trouble losing weight, it's not your fault. It's not because you don't have enough self discipline or you eat too much or you don't exercise enough. Usually, if you are watching what you eat and exercising and all of those things. And so, this old paradigm that calories in equals calories out has just been proven untrue time and time again lately. So there are actually things going on in your body that are keeping you from being able to lose weight normally and from being able to sleep normally. Now, I don't help people specifically with weight loss. That's definitely not what I am focusing on or promising. But some of my clients have struggled to lose weight. And by helping them lower cortisol and sleep better, then the weight naturally comes off. So my client Jaipal wrote 2 months into the program, I realized I had dropped 15 pounds of extra weight. He wasn't trying to, but we were working on everything else that was going on in his body, and it led to this natural weight loss. And so this has definitely happened with quite a few of our clients. So if you're sick of not sleeping well and being unhealthy and having this weight that you can't lose, my team and I can help. So in the Complete Sleep Solution program, we address both the body and the mind and how they affect cortisol and sabotage your sleep. Now, there can definitely be more than cortisol that leads to sleep issues. Mineral imbalances, hormone imbalances, neurotransmitters, and more can also lead to insomnia. So, we look at all of these possibilities to find the root cause of why you aren't sleeping normally so that we don't miss anything. So you can find out more about the program at thesleepdetective.com. If this is something you're ready to get started on, you can schedule a free call with me so that you can get 7 or more hours of uninterrupted sleep a night in 6 months or less. And the link to schedule that call is in the show notes. All right, everyone, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next week.